Okay.
Don't say smile.
So, as we get started, could you state your name and when and where you were born? Can you state your name and when and where you were born?
My name is Irving Hauser. I was born June the 11th, 1921, in New York City, in Manhattan. You want to be precise?
You can be as precise as you want.
1412 Madison Avenue, New
Okay.
York City, New York. My mother told me that many times. That's how come I know. But anyway,
What was your life like before you joined the military?
I can't say it was any different than any other young boy at that time. Uh, I went to school.
Did you have brothers and sisters? Any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have a brother and an older brother and an older sister, and I'm the youngest of all the children.
Did anybody else in your family get involved in the military?
No,
Why did you?
pardon?
Why did you get involved in the military?
I didn't. Oh well, I shouldn't say I didn't get involved. I enlisted in the military merely because I hate to say it's the thing to do, but the Germans were massacring, killing millions of people, innocent people, in my own race and religion. And they asked me, what can you do? I said, the only thing I can do is join the army and do whatever I can. And that's all I did.
Who asked you? A recruiter?
Pardon?
Who did you have that conversation with? A recruiter, or who asked you what you can do?
No, I had that conversation with my parents.
Oh,
My father was nonplussed, yes or no. My mother cried. She was against it. And I said, Mom, that's the only thing I can do because they can't take my older brother. He had a medical problem, and they certainly weren't going to take my sister.
mm-hmm.
So they said, he's the only one eligible to go to the military at that time. And that's the reason why I went, because I was the only one eligible.
Were your grandparents from Europe?
No,
Did you lose any family in the war?
no. So, uh, how can I put it? It was the thing to do
The
in
right thing to do.
1942 when the United States went to war. And they said, if you don't enlist, we'll draft you. So it was that simple. I was of military age, and if I didn't enlist, 6 months later, they would draft me.
What were you doing before you enlisted? Were you working?
Oh, I was uh, working in my father's fur business.
Oh, he was a furrier?
Yes, my father was a furrier, and I started out as a delivery boy, delivering fur coats, uh, and then working as an operator, sewing fur coats, making mink coats. You should excuse the expression. And it was it was a non-essential thing to do in the time of war. It's that
Luxury.
simple. It wasn't the thing to do for a young man when his country was at war and his people, Jewish people, were being massacred.
Sure.
Simple as that. I
Right.
mean, if you didn't go, we'll take you.
It sounds like it gave your life a lot more purpose than sewing mink coats. Would that be
How do you put
accurate?
it? You do what you have to do during your lifetime in order to get by.
Even though your mom was not happy about this.
No, definitely not. So, uh, but it was something that had to be done. Uh, and to tell you the truth, you don't look upon it as a dangerous, life-threatening thing.
How did you view it? How did you look at it?
I looked at it as a necessary thing to do
Okay.
at a time uh, when people were being killed for the only reason was their religion. So when the United States went to war, it was like telling the world that this is not the thing to do among civilized people. So you have to do what you have to do in times of emergency
Mhm.
in order to get by.
That's
It's that way even in your daily life.
mhm.
So under the circumstances, all eligible men were considered their duty to, to do their duty, to do what best they can to help that situation. That's all.
You really demonstrated leadership at a very young age, that you had that ability to understand it, because not everybody does. So we tip our hats to you. How did you determine which branch of service, and tell us about the branch of service you went into?
Well, that's an ironic situation.
How so?
I was an amateur photographer. I love to take pictures. So they said to me, "You like to take pictures? We'll put you in a signal corps and we'll go to school. You can be a photographer." So I said, "Hey, they're going to send me to school." So I went and they said, "Well, all you have to do is go down and enlist. And we'll send you to school and we'll make you a photographer."
Were they stretching the truth?
So I went down and I enlisted and I came home, and when I told my mother, she cried and she busted out in tears, and my father just didn't say a word. He was mum, absolutely. And I said, "Ma, it's the only thing to do, and they're going to make a photographer out of me." So I said, "What's dangerous about being a photographer? You take pictures. I'll be in the army, I'll take pictures." So I enlisted, and they said to me, "You want to go home?" I said, they said, "Go home for a week." They sent me home for a week after I enlisted, and my mother busted out in tears when I came home after I said goodbye, and she said, "See, I told you they wouldn't take you." She says, "I told you they don't want you." So I said, "What are you talking about? They sent me home for a week." They said, "Clean up your affairs."
A little of the Jewish guilt going on there.
Yeah, I mean, do whatever you have to do and come back and get ready to go to work. I said, "That's what I have to do." So I stayed home for a week and I went to my friends and I said goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Uh, and then when I went back into the service, they said, "What did you do in your civilian life?" I said, "I worked in my father's business." They said, "What's your father's business?" I said, "He's a furrier. He's a lady's tailor and a furrier." And they looked at me and they said, "We don't need no ladies' tailors. We don't need no furriers." I said, "I'm an amateur photographer." And I said, "I'd like to get into the signal corps." And he said, "We don't need photographers." I said, "So what do you need?" He said, "We need aircraft and engine mechanics." She said, He said, rather, you hang around Floyd Bennett Field? I said, yeah, that's near my house. He said, why? I said, well, I used to wash airplanes for, for some of the pilots around there if they teach me how to fly. So he says, did you get any lessons? Yeah, I got a few. Took me up. He says, what'd your family say? They told me not to do it. They said, don't you dare do that, you know. So I said, well, it's nothing, you're flying. So they said, that's what we need. We need people that'll fly, and we need mechanics. I said, you're kidding. I said, I'm no mechanic. They said, we'll make you a mechanic. That's what they did.
So that
They
ended
sent
your
me-
photography career and began your airplane mechanic career?
They sent me to aircraft and engine mechanic field at Chanute Field in Rantoul, Illinois. And that's what I did in the Army. From the day I got out of the Rantoul till the day they sent me home. I was an aircraft and engine mechanic, and I used to fly on plane and engine tests. When a plane is ready for service, military or civilian, you have to take it up for what's called a plane and engine test. Take it up and you fly around for about 10-15 minutes, and you do a few little loops in this. And if everything is as we say, A-OK, you write it up, and that's it. So that's what I did. And after a while, I was at Wright Field at Dayton, Ohio, a couple of years. I said, hey, this is really the thing. I mean, I'll be at Wright Field, and what's dangerous in Wright Field? It's a long way from Europe. So then all of a sudden they came to me and they said, we need people out in service. I said, well, what do you mean by service? He said, well, we'll send you to Guam. We need people in the Pacific. So they sent me to Guam.
What was that like?
I was flying in B-17s and B-29s as an aircraft and engine mechanic. We did a few aerial surveillance missions, but most of the missions that we did were plane and engine tests, which is what we did principally. It was our job to see that B-17s and B-29s were in flying condition to go for missions over Japan. And that's what we did. We serviced and we readied B-29s and B-17s for their bombing missions over Japan.
Wow, that's incredible.
So that's what they call frontline service. But nobody ever shot at me, and I never shot at anybody. I mean, it was strictly an aircraft and engine mechanic's job.
In your estimation, did you test and service hundreds or thousands of planes?
Yeah.
How many, hundreds or thousands?
Well, it's hard to say.
Did you do multiple tests per day, or would you focus on one aircraft per day?
Yeah. You see, first of all, you worked day and night as needed. There was no such thing as hours. There was no such thing as Sunday.
How did you like that lifestyle?
I'll tell you the truth, you get used to it. You have nothing else to do. Uh, you can't sit around the barracks. There's no place to go. On Guam and Saipan, there's nothing there but military installations.
What was it like? Do you recall the weather or the culture or anything?
What was it like to what?
What was Guam like?
On Guam?
Yeah, what was the life, the weather like, the people? Do you have any memories of that?
You had absolutely nothing to do with the natives. And I mean that is absolutely nothing.
Those were your orders? You weren't allowed to communicate with them?
The military frowned upon fraternization with the natives, especially with the women, because here you are, 20, 21 years old, and there are girls, and what do you think about? You think about girls. What does any uh, normal boy think about at 20 and 21? Girls. And they didn't like that because you
were
get
focused
into
on your
trouble.
mission,
Yeah.
your responsibility?
And incidentally, the problem was, believe it or not, venereal disease, which was the problem in the military on Guam among men that fraternized and socialized with women. Not everybody came down with syphilis and gonorrhea, but a considerable amount of men did, and they frowned upon that. So the only thing they emphasized